The police officer tightened the handcuffs on my wrists and read me my rights. I was being arrested for grand theft auto, the car I was sitting in, the car I bought with my own money. My parents had just reported it stolen to stop me from leaving home, but they didn't know my dashcam was still recording. My name is Alara Vance. I was 26 years old when my own family weaponized the police to force me back into a home I was trying to escape. This is the story of how a false police report became their ultimate tool of control and how a single piece of technology, a dashcam I bought for safety, ended up capturing the entire conspiracy. But to understand why they did it, you have to understand the 2 decades of silence that came before the handcuffs. Growing up in the Vance household in suburban Ohio, there were 2 rules: obedience and silence. My brother Liam, 2 years older, was the star. I was the shadow. He played quarterback. I kept the stats. He got new cleats every season. I got his hand-me-down sneakers a size too big. My parents, Robert and Cynthia, saw parenting as a binary equation. Love was a currency, and they only invested in a sure thing. Liam was loud, charismatic, a natural performer who knew how to make them laugh at the dinner table. I was the quiet one, the reader, the girl who asked too many questions about how things worked. In our family, curiosity was a threat. My father managed a hardware distribution warehouse. My mother didn't work outside the home, but her job was specifically curating the perfect image of our family for the neighbors. Appearances were everything. A messy lawn was a moral failure, a B+ was a public embarrassment, and wanting something for yourself, something they didn't approve of, was the ultimate betrayal. I learned to make myself small. I got a job at the local library at 16, not for pocket money, but for escape. Every dollar I earned was a dollar closer to a future they couldn't dictate. That's where the car fund started. A beat-up Honda Civic was listed for $4,000. It represented autonomy, a way to see friends without the 3rd degree, to apply for colleges farther than a 30-mile radius. It took me 18 months of shelving books and weekend shifts to save it up. The day I drove it home, my mother met me in the driveway, arms crossed. "Where did you get that?" "I bought it, Mom, with my own money." Her expression didn't change. "You live under our roof. Anything you own is because we allow it. We need to put the title in our name for insurance purposes. It's safer that way." I was naive. I thought they were being protective. I signed the title over to my father. That was my first mistake. The car was in my name, but legally it was theirs. They held the title like a hostage. Liam's path was different. He crashed his first car, a gift for his 18th birthday, and got a second one. He flunked out of community college, and Dad got him a job at the warehouse. He got caught stealing from the register, and Mom called it a misunderstanding. His failures were always reframed as bad luck or someone else's fault. My successes were ignored, or worse, attributed to him. When I got a full academic scholarship to Ohio State, my mother told her book club, "We're so relieved. Liam's hard work at the warehouse is finally paying for her tuition." He hadn't contributed a cent. I commuted to college, living at home. The deal was free room and board, but the price was total surveillance. My phone was checked. My emails were monitored from the family computer. Friends were interrogated. It was a gilded cage. I studied business logistics, fascinated by systems and efficiency. I saw the flaws in my father's warehouse reports at dinner and learned to bite my tongue. Speaking up was disrespect. Silence was compliance. After graduation, I got a job as a logistics coordinator for a medical supply company. It was a good job, my own desk, my own email address, a salary that finally meant something. For the first time, I had my own bank account, one my parents weren't on. It felt like stealing oxygen. I paid them a modest rent, but I started secretly saving again. A new fund, an apartment fund. This is when the dynamic shifted. Liam lost his job at the warehouse, showed up drunk one too many times. My parents couldn't blame a coworker this time. The financial pressure in the house became a physical thing, a constant low hum of anxiety, and their eyes turned to me. My paycheck was now the family's safety net. My mother started borrowing money, $200 for a surprise utility bill, $500 because the car needed a repair she never showed me a receipt for. When I got a promotion and a raise, she knew the exact amount before I could tell her. She'd seen the letter from HR I'd foolishly left in my bag. That raise didn't go into my apartment fund. It disappeared into the black hole of Liam's latest scheme, a failed detailing business that lasted 6 weeks. I bought the dashcam after a close call on the highway. A truck merged without seeing me. I thought it was for safety, for insurance. I never imagined it would become a witness for the defense. I installed it myself, clipping it behind the rearview mirror. Its tiny red light, a silent sentinel. My parents never noticed it. To them, technology was for watching TV. The tension hit its breaking point on a Sunday in October. I'd found a studio apartment. It was 20 minutes away, clean, affordable. I'd paid the deposit and first month's rent from my secret fund. I planned to tell them that evening. I was prepared for anger, for guilt, for tears. What I wasn't prepared for was the ledger. My father had left his office desk unlocked. I went in to leave my rent check, and there it was, a spiral notebook open on the blotter, not business inventory, a personal ledger, columns of dates, amounts, and a single word: Liam. Thousands of dollars, loans for debts I never knew about, overdraft fees, credit card balances, even a personal loan from a man my father called Shark. The last entry was from the previous week, $5,000, reason, legal retainer. Trouble at the track. My brother had a gambling problem, a serious one, and my parents were funding it with my money. The rent I paid, the loans my mother took, it was all flowing to cover his losses. I stood there, the numbers blurring. The silence I'd maintained for 24 years curdled into something hot and solid in my chest. I confronted them at dinner. The air was already thick. I placed the ledger on the table between the meatloaf and the mashed potatoes. What is this? My father's face went pale, then red. Where did you get that? That's private. Is this where my money is going? To cover Liam's gambling? My mother's hand flew to her chest. How dare you accuse your brother? We've given you everything. This is how you repay us, with snooping and accusations. Liam just stared at his plate, a smirk playing on his lips. He was enjoying this. I finally had his attention. I'm moving out at the end of the month. I've already signed a lease. The silence that followed was absolute. Then my mother started to cry. Not sad tears, angry, theatrical ones. After all we've done for you, you abandon us when we need you most. Your brother is in trouble, family sticks together. I am sticking together, I'm here, but I won't bankroll his addiction anymore, and I'm taking my car. That's when my father stood up, his chair scraping loud against the floor. The car is not your car. It's in my name. You leave this house, you leave on foot. That was the line, the legal line they'd drawn years ago and waited for me to cross, the trapdoor beneath my feet. I looked at my mother, still crying. I looked at Liam, who wouldn't meet my eyes. I looked at my father, standing there like a judge pronouncing a sentence. Fine, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I'll call a friend for a ride. I'll pack my things tonight. I turned to go upstairs. My mother's crying stopped instantly. Her voice was cold, clear, and perfectly calculated. If you walk out that door, Elara, we will call the police. We will report your car stolen. And we will tell them you took it in a fit of rage, that you're emotionally unstable, that you threatened us. I froze on the stairs. They wouldn't. My father picked up the cordless phone from its cradle on the wall. Try us. The red light on my dashcam, hidden behind me in the car parked just outside the kitchen window, glowed steadily in the dark. It had been recording this whole time. They didn't know that. And in that moment, paralyzed on the staircase, neither did I. I turned my back on my father, holding the phone, and walked up to my room. I heard the click of the handset being put back in the cradles. I thought they'd blinked. I was wrong. I packed a single suitcase. Clothes, my laptop, the folder with my lease and bank statements. Every movement felt slow underwater. I could hear them talking downstairs, low and urgent, but not the words. A part of me, the little girl who still lived in that shadow, hoped they'd come up, that my mother would say this had gone too far, that my father would admit he was scared. The door stayed shut. 20 minutes later, I wheeled my suitcase downstairs. The house was silent. The kitchen was empty. My car keys were still on the hook by the door. I took them. I loaded my suitcase into the trunk of my Civic. The dashcam's red light was off. It only activated when the engine was running. I sat in the driver's seat, my hands shaking so badly I dropped the keys. This was it. I was leaving. I started the car. The dashcam light glowed to life. I backed out of the driveway. In my rearview mirror, I saw the living room curtain twitch. Then nothing. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. I'd made it. I drove 3 blocks, 4, heading toward the highway on-ramp. The tightness in my chest began to loosen. Then the red and blue lights flashed in my mirror. My stomach dropped. It couldn't be a coincidence, a traffic stop. I pulled over smoothly, my heart hammering against my ribs. 2 police cruisers pulled up behind me, one in front, doors opened. Officers approached from both sides, hands on their holsters. This wasn't a routine stop. The officer at my window was young, his face all business. License and registration, please. I fumbled in my glove box, handed them over. He looked at my license, then back at me. Miss Vance, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Keep your hands where I can see them. Why, what's this about? Step out of the vehicle, ma'am, now. I opened the door, the cool night air hit me. As soon as I stood up, he took my arm. Turn around, place your hands behind your back. I was so confused, so disoriented, I complied. The cold metal of the handcuffs snapped around my wrists. The sound was final, a click that echoed in my bones. You're under arrest for grand theft auto. You have the right to remain silent. The words blurred. Grand theft auto, my car, they did it. They actually did it. I was helped into the back of the cruiser, the hard plastic seat, the smell of antiseptic and old coffee. Through the partition, I watched an officer search my car. He popped the trunk, saw my suitcase. He took my laptop bag. This was real. At the station, they processed me. Fingerprints, photographs, the impersonal clatter of bureaucracy. I was placed in a holding cell with 2 other women. One slept, the other stared at the wall. I sat on the bench, the reality settling like a weight, a felony, a criminal record. My job in logistics required a clean background check. My new apartment lease required a background check. My life, the one I'd built so carefully brick by brick, was evaporating in this gray, fluorescent lit room. I used my one phone call to dial my friend Maya, the only person who knew I was planning to leave. Her voice was a lifeline. Elara, oh my God, where are you? I'm at the county precinct. They arrested me. My parents reported the car stolen. A beat of stunned silence. Then the practical Maya I knew kicked in. Say nothing, do not talk to them without a lawyer, I'm calling someone, just sit tight. A public defender was assigned to me, a weary-looking man named Mr. Jacobs. He met me in a small, windowless room. He had my file. The charge was based on a sworn statement from my father, Robert Vance, asserting I took a 2012 Honda Civic VIN number listed without permission. The title was in his name. It looked open and shut. I told him the whole story, the saving, the title transfer, the ledger, the threat. He listened, taking notes, his expression not changing. It's a he said, she said, Alara. The title is the legal document. He owns the car. You took it. That's the law. Your family drama isn't going to trump a clear title. But I paid for it. I have bank records. Doesn't matter. You gifted it to him. The law sees the paper, not the story behind it. He sighed. They're offering a deal. Plead guilty to a misdemeanor unauthorized use. You'll get probation, a fine, no jail time. Your record will be sealed eventually. It's the best you're going to get. A criminal record, a sealed one was still a stain. It would follow me. I felt the walls closing in. My parents had built a perfect legal trap and I'd walked right into it. The silence of my childhood had finally found its voice and it was reading me my rights. Then sitting in that awful room, I remembered. The light, the tiny, persistent red light behind the rearview mirror, the dash cam, it starts recording automatically when the engine turns on. It had been on when I was in the driveway. When I was in the kitchen arguing, was it still recording from earlier? Some models have a parking mode triggered by motion or sound. My mind raced. I had installed it myself. It saved files to a micro SD card, loop recording, overwriting the oldest files unless they were locked. The footage from tonight, it might still be there. If it captured them threatening me, admitting the car was mine. I leaned forward, my voice urgent. Mr. Jacobs, there's a dash cam in the car. It was recording tonight. It might have audio from inside the house before I left. He looked up from his notes, skeptical. Audio inside the house, that's a privacy issue, might not be admissible. But if it captures them planning to file a false report, admitting I paid for the car, isn't that evidence of intent? He was quiet for a moment. Where's the car now? Impound lot. The memory card is in it. We need to get it before it's wiped or the car is released. We need a court order to seize it as evidence. He started writing faster. This changes things, but it's a long shot. We have to convince a judge there's probable cause to look and your father could argue it's his property. We have to try. It took 2 days in a personal hell. I was released on my own recognizance, but the charge hung over me like a blade. I couldn't go to my new apartment. I stayed with Maya. I called my work, told them I had a family emergency. I couldn't tell them the truth. My parents didn't call. Liam didn't call. The silence was complete. Mr. Jacobs filed an emergency motion. He argued there was reason to believe exculpatory evidence existed on a device within the impounded vehicle. My father's lawyer, a slick man in a suit who smelled like expensive cologne, opposed it. He called it a fishing expedition, an invasion of privacy. The judge, a stern woman with sharp eyes, listened to both sides. She focused on one point. Counsel for the defense, you assert this device may have recorded conversations prior to the alleged theft, conversations that occurred within the domicile. Is there precedent for this device being activated by events outside the vehicle? Mr. Jacobs presented the manual I'd given him. It described a parking mode activated by motion or impact near the car. Your Honor, the vehicle was parked directly outside the kitchen window. If voices were raised, if there was movement, it's plausible the recording began before my client ever entered the vehicle to leave. The judge steepled her fingers. She looked at my father's lawyer. The title is in your client's name. It is, Your Honor. Yet the defendant claims a financial interest and alleges a malicious intent to file a false report. She ordered a compromise. The court will appoint a neutral third party, a forensic technician from the county's cybercrimes unit, to retrieve the data from the device. He will create a forensic copy. He will then provide the court with a log of file timestamps from the relevant 24-hour period. Based on that log, I will review in camera to determine if any recordings are potentially exculpatory and admissible. The impound lot is to release the vehicle to no one until this is complete. It was a chance, a tiny procedural chance. The forensic tech, a guy named Ben who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, met us at the impound lot. My Civic looked small and forlorn behind a chain-link fence. Ben unlocked it, climbed in. He located the dash cam, carefully removed the micro SD card, and inserted it into a handheld reader connected to his laptop. We stood outside in the drizzling rain, watching through the windshield. He scanned the directory. Files were timestamped. He read them off. File 1 today 8:18 p.m. File 2 8:22 p.m. File 3 his voice trailed off. He scrolled. File timestamp 7:05 p.m. That's before she got in the car, Mr. Jacobs said, a new edge in his voice. The tech nodded. The vehicle was off. Parking mode was active. This file was triggered by an audio event. He highlighted it. Do you want me to play the audio? Here now, I asked, my voice a whisper. We need to know what we have, Mr. Jacobs said, play it. Ben plugged in headphones, split the jack so we could both listen. He hit play. For a second, just the faint hum of street noise. Then, clear as day, my mother's voice, sharp and close to the open kitchen window. Just let her go, Robert. She'll be back when she runs out of money. My father's voice, gruff and angry. No, she's not taking the car. We need that leverage. If she walks out, we call it in. We tell them she's unstable. It's in my name. They'll believe us. Then my own voice, faint but discernible from inside the house. I'm taking my car. My father's response, a shout, the car is not your car. It's in my name. You leave this house, you leave on foot. A pause, then my mother's voice, cold and calculated, the threat I'd heard on the stairs. If you walk out that door, Ilara, we will call the police. We will report your car stolen. And we will tell them you took it in a fit of rage, that you're emotionally unstable, that you threatened us. The sound of my footsteps on the stairs. Then my father's voice lower to my mother, call Liam, tell him to be ready. We do it as soon as she pulls out. I'll make the report, you describe the car. The recording ended. There was silence except for the rain on the impound lot asphalt. Mr. Jacobs took off his headphones, his face grimly triumphant. Ben the tech looked deeply uncomfortable, a witness to a private horror. That, Mr. Jacobs said quietly, is a conspiracy to file a false police report. That is intent, that is your proof. The relief was so violent it felt like nausea. They were heard, their plan in their own voices was captured. The title didn't matter, their admission did, we had them. But the pivot came from what we heard next. Ben, checking the file sequence, found one more parking mode file, timestamped just 5 minutes after the first one ended. He played it. Just my parents' voices again, but the tone had changed. The performative anger was gone, they were just talking. My mother, sounding tired, the retainer for Liam's lawyer is due Monday. 5,000, where are we going to get it? My father, the equity line is tapped, it has to come from her. She gets her next paycheck on Friday, we'll tell her it's for the property tax. Mother, what if she says no? What if she finds out about the other debts? Father, then we do what we just said. We use the car, we stick to the story. The lawyer said a theft charge would give us control. She'd have to plead, take a deal that includes restitution to us. We could garnish her wages, legally. A cold, logical scheme. This wasn't just a fit of rage, it was a financial strategy. My arrest wasn't just punishment, it was a tool to access my future earnings. To fund Liam's legal troubles, I wasn't just the disappointing daughter, I was the asset. The ledger in the office was just the opening act. Mr. Jacobs looked at me, his earlier weariness replaced by a hard, focused light. Ilara, this isn't family drama anymore. This is fraud. This is conspiracy. You're not the defendant here. You're the victim. We're going to the district attorney. And we're not asking for the charges to be dropped. We're asking for charges to be filed against them. The ground shifted under me. The goalposts moved. An hour ago, I wanted to be free. Now my lawyer was talking about turning the case on its head, about prosecuting my parents. The dashcam footage was no longer just a shield, it was a weapon, and I had to decide if I was willing to use it. The decision was made in the front seat of Mr. Jacobs' car, the rain streaking the windshield. We were going on the offensive, but I hadn't considered what happens when you corner a predator. Mr. Jacobs scheduled a meeting with the assistant district attorney, a woman named Carla Russo. We presented the audio, the timeline, my bank statements showing the original $4,000 withdrawal, the ledger photos. We laid out the case, conspiracy to file a false report, fraud, attempted wage garnishment through coercion. Carla listened, her face impassive. When the audio finished, she leaned back in her chair. This is ugly. It's also a family matter. My office doesn't like to get in the middle of domestic disputes. The car is asterisk in the father's name. That gives him a legal right to report it. Mr. Jacobs was ready. With respect, the legal right is voided by malicious intent. They didn't report a theft. They manufactured one, as captured in their own words, to gain financial leverage. That's fraud. That's a crime against the state, not just a civil issue. She considered this. I'll need to review the admissibility of the recording. The privacy issue is a hurdle, but the intent is clear. She looked at me. Are you prepared for this, Miss Vance? If we move forward, this becomes public. Your parents could face misdemeanor charges, possibly felonies depending on how we structure it. There will be no taking it back. I felt the weight of the word felonies asterisk. My parents in orange jumpsuits. The image was surreal, horrifying, but then I saw the ledger. I heard my father's voice planning to garnish my wages. Yes, I said, my voice thin but clear, I'm prepared. Carla agreed to open an investigation. My theft charge was put on hold pending the outcome. I was given my car back. Sitting in the driver's seat again, the dashcam, now a silent monument in the windshield, felt like climbing into a crime scene. I drove to Maya's apartment, which had become my war room. The first counterstrike came within 48 hours. Not from the police, but from my extended family. My phone blew up. Texts from aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. Your mother is devastated. How could you do this? Call off this nonsense, Alara. You're destroying your family. We heard you're trying to have your own parents arrested after all they've done for you. My parents had launched their own campaign. They'd called everyone, spinning a new story. I was emotionally unstable. I stolen from them and now caught red-handed. I was trying to avoid jail by fabricating wild accusations. The dashcam footage, they claimed I'd doctored it, that I was tech-savvy and manipulative. The isolation was immediate and profound. My support system, already small, was under siege. Only Maya and Mr. Jacobs were in my corner. The world my parents had curated for decades, the image of the perfect put upon parents, was their fortress, and they were manning the walls. Then a letter arrived at Maya's from my parents' lawyer. It was a formal offer to resolve this family misunderstanding. The terms: I would drop any complaint with the DA, they would withdraw the police report, the car would be signed over to me. In exchange, I would sign a non-disclosure agreement, never speak of this publicly, and agree to a family reconciliation plan that included mandatory weekly dinners and financial counseling, where I would help them address their debts. They were still trying to control the money. The audacity was breathtaking. Mr. Jacobs called it a trap. Sign this and you give up all your leverage. The financial counseling is just a pipeline to your bank account. He advised we reject it and wait for the DA's decision. But the pressure was eating me alive. The DA's investigation was slow. My job was in jeopardy. I'd had to take a leave of absence. The apartment landlord was getting nervous about the pending charge on my background check. I was running out of savings, out of time, out of emotional stamina. The clean, just outcome I'd imagined was crumbling into a protracted, ugly war of attrition. That's when Liam found me. I was at a coffee shop near Maya's, trying to work on my resume, when he slid into the chair opposite me. He looked terrible, pale, thinner, his eyes darting. He smelled of stale smoke. Alara, we need to talk. I didn't move. You have 5 seconds before I call the police. Just listen, please. They're going to ruin you. You don't know what they're capable of. I laughed, a bitter, sharp sound. I think I have a pretty good idea. No, you don't. He leaned forward, his voice dropping. The gambling thing, it's worse than the ledger. I owe people, bad people, not just money. The $5,000 for the lawyer wasn't for a DUI, it was because a guy, he's pressing charges. Assault. Dad was going to pay him off to make it go away. My blood ran cold. You hurt someone. It was an accident. A fight got out of hand. The point is, they need money, a lot of it. Your salary was the plan. If they can't get it from you by controlling you, they'll get it by destroying you. They're going to say you're a danger. They're petitioning for a temporary psychiatric hold. I stared at him. They can't do that. They can try. Mom's been keeping a journal for years, documenting your erratic behavior, your mood swings, your isolation. She's got a list of every time you stayed in your room as a teenager, every time you talked back. They're going to use it to say you're a risk to yourself and others. If you get committed, even for 72 hours, they become your guardians. They control everything. The world tilted. This was a new level of calculation. This wasn't just about a car or money anymore. This was about dismantling my legal personhood. The journal was a weapon they'd been forging since childhood. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm next. He looked truly scared. Once they're done with you and they've drained you dry to pay my debts, what do you think happens to me? I'm the liability. I know where the bodies are buried. I need out too. He was flipping. My brother, the golden child, was offering to defect. The irony was so thick I could taste it. What do you want? Immunity. If the DA goes after them, I want a deal. I'll testify. I'll give them everything, the ledger, the conversations, the plan for the psych hold, all of it. But I walk away. No charges for me. I sat back, reeling. My brother was trading our parents for his own safety. The family unit wasn't just broken, it was cannibalizing itself. I told him I couldn't promise anything, but I'd talk to my lawyer. I met Mr. Jacobs that evening. When I told him about the journal and the planned psychiatric hold, his face went grim. That's next-level premeditation. That helps us. It shows a pattern of malicious intent to control you through any means. As for your brother, he's a potential co-conspirator. His testimony is valuable, but the DA will want him to plead to something. We can present it as a package deal. We went back to Carla Russ with the new information. The brother's testimony, the threat of a false mental health petition. This wasn't a domestic squabble anymore. It was a multi-pronged campaign of financial and psychological abuse. Carla's professional detachment finally cracked. Okay, she said, you've got my attention. This is now a priority. The DA's office moved fast. They subpoenaed my mother's journal. They brought my parents in for questioning separately. They interviewed Liam with his lawyer present, and he gave them the full architecture of the scheme. The deal was being drafted. Liam would plead to a minor charge related to false statements in exchange for full cooperation. My parents, confronted with the journal, the audio, and their son's testimony, didn't confess. They lawyered up harder. Their story evolved again. I had manipulated Liam into lying. I was the mastermind, turning the family against itself. The mental health journal was out of love and concern. They were the victims of a cruel, scheming daughter. A court date was set, a preliminary hearing to determine if there was enough evidence for the conspiracy and fraud charges to go to trial. It would be the first public airing of the dashcam audio. The night before the hearing, my father called me. It was the first time I'd heard his voice since the arrest. It wasn't angry, it was cold, flat, and final. Elara, drop this, walk away now, and we will too. We'll sign the car over, we'll leave you alone, you can have your little life. Or we will show the world who you really are. We have statements from old teachers, neighbors, we have records. We will prove you're unstable, a liar, and a thief. You will never work in this town again. You will lose everything, including your freedom. This is your last chance to be a daughter. The threat was naked now, no pretense of love, just mutual assured destruction. I realized then that he believed it. He believed his own fiction so completely that in his mind, he was offering me mercy. I hung up without answering. The hearing was in a small, wood-paneled courtroom. My parents sat at the defense table with their lawyer not looking at me. Liam sat in the back, a ghost. The judge entered. The DA presented her case, outlining the evidence. Then she played the audio. In the silent, formal room, my parents' voices were a shocking obscenity. Hearing my mother's cold threat, my father's plotting about garnishing wages in this setting made it real in a new way. I watched the judge's face. I watched my parents' lawyer sink slightly in his chair. When it finished, the judge was quiet for a long moment. She looked at my parents' attorney. The defense may present its argument regarding admissibility. The attorney stood. Your Honor, this recording is an outrageous violation of privacy obtained illegally. The judge held up a hand. The vehicle was on a public street. The device was triggered by sound. There is no reasonable expectation of privacy for conversations projected outside a home. The audio is admissible. Based on the evidence presented, I find probable cause exists for the charges of conspiracy to file a false police report and attempted fraud. The matter will proceed to trial. The gavel cracked. It was a victory, a real legal victory. My charges were formally dismissed. I was free. But as we walked out of the courtroom, my mother turned to me. Her eyes were dry, her face a mask of pure, distilled hatred I had never seen before. This isn't over, she hissed, just loud enough for me to hear. You think you've won? You have no idea what losing looks like. We built you, we can unmake you. They were going to trial, and they were going to fight with everything they had. The battle for the truth was won in that courtroom. The war for my life was just beginning, and the next move I would learn wouldn't come from a lawyer, it would come from the evening news. My mother's threat about the evening news wasn't a metaphor. 2 days after the hearing, a local news segment aired. The headline, Family Feud or Fraud, Parents Accused of Framing Daughter. A reporter tipped off anonymously, likely by my parents' lawyer trying to sway public opinion, stood outside the courthouse. The segment was a masterpiece of false equivalence. It mentioned the bizarre dashcam allegations, showed a grainy photo of our house, and quoted a family friend who said, "It's a tragic misunderstanding. Those parents would do anything for their kids." My parents weren't named, but anyone in our town would know. The story framed it as a messy he said, she said. The audio just heated words. They weaponized the media just as they'd weaponized the police. But the internet works differently. A true crime podcast host, a woman named Tessa, saw the local news clip. She dug deeper. She filed public records requests for the court documents. She listened to the full unedited dashcam audio, which was now part of the public court file. And she did what the local news wouldn't. She played it, all of it. Her podcast episode, The Predatory Parents, How a Dashcam Exposed a Family Fraud, dropped on a Tuesday morning. By noon, it was trending. The audio, detached from the visual of a family, was chilling in its clarity. The cold calculation in my mother's voice, the transactional planning in my father's. People heard it for what it was, a conspiracy. The backlash was immediate, and it wasn't against me. My parents' social media was flooded. Their church community called for a meeting. The hardware warehouse where my father worked issued a statement about conducting an internal review. The court of public opinion, fueled by the raw evidence, reached a verdict long before the trial did. The DA's office, now under the spotlight, moved with renewed vigor. The plea deals were finalized. Liam formally agreed to testify. In exchange for his full cooperation, he would plead guilty to a single count of making a false statement to a peace officer, a misdemeanor. He'd get probation, community service. He was cutting his losses. My parents, isolated and publicly vilified, finally faced reality. Their lawyer approached Carla Russett with a new offer. They would plead guilty to conspiracy to file a false report, a misdemeanor, and attempted fraud, a felony that would likely be reduced after sentencing. They would sign the car title over to me immediately. They would drop any claims against me. In exchange, they wanted no jail time, just probation. Carla brought the offer to me. It's a good deal, Elara. A felony conviction on their record, probation for years, restitution to you for legal fees. You get the car clean, you avoid a traumatic trial. What about the journal, the mental health hold plans? We can introduce it at sentencing to argue for stricter probation terms, but proving that beyond a reasonable doubt at trial would be harder. This way, it's over. I thought about another year of this, of testifying against them, of seeing them across a courtroom. I thought about the cost, not in money, but in pieces of myself. I wanted it to be over, I agreed. The sentencing hearing was a different kind of quiet, not the tense silence of battle, but the hollow silence of aftermath. My parents stood before the judge, they looked old. When asked, they each said, "Guilty, Your Honor." The words landed with a thud. There was no fanfare, no dramatic confession, just an admission. The judge was not lenient. She cited the egregious breach of trust, the premeditated manipulation of the justice system, and the profound psychological harm done. She gave them each the maximum probation term, 3 years. They were ordered to complete 200 hours of community service. They were to have no contact with me unless I initiated it through a lawyer. And they were ordered to pay restitution to me for my legal fees and lost wages, $22,000. My father signed the car title over to me in the hallway outside the courtroom, a court clerk witnessing. He handed me the paper without meeting my eyes. My mother stared straight ahead, her jaw set. They were led away by their lawyer. I never heard from them again. I moved into my apartment. I returned to work. My colleagues had heard rumors, but I kept it brief. A family legal matter now resolved. My boss, a pragmatic woman, simply said, "Glad it's over, your desk is waiting." Life began to normalize, but it was a new normal, one built on the rubble of the old. The surprising detail came 6 months later from a certified letter. It was from a forensic accountant hired by the DA's office during their investigation. As part of the fraud probe, they'd subpoenaed all my parents' financial records. The letter was a summary of findings they thought I should know. The ledger I'd found was just the tip of the iceberg. My parents were drowning in debt, over $200,000, much of it high-interest personal loans. The house was mortgaged to the hilt, but the bombshell was about the car. The forensic trail showed that the $4,000 I'd given my father for the insurance transfer when I was 18, he never paid it to any insurance company. He deposited it into a separate account and used it as a down payment on a boat for Liam. The car had always been uninsured in my name. They'd been lying about that too for years. The final line of the letter, "This evidence of conversion of your funds for an unauthorized purpose was considered in the fraud charge and restitution order." They hadn't just taken my car, they stolen the money for it twice over. The relief I felt was tinged with a profound sadness. The deceit was so deep, so woven into the fabric of our life that I was still discovering its threads. Liam served his probation. He moved to a different state for a fresh start. We speak occasionally, awkward, cautious conversations. There's no friendship there, but the war is over. We're two survivors of the same shipwreck, swimming to different shores. As for me, I sold the Civic. I couldn't drive it without feeling the ghost of handcuffs on my wrists. I used part of the restitution money to buy a new car. The first thing I installed was a Dashcam, a newer model with cloud storage. The case left a mark, not just on my record, which is clean, but on my understanding of the world. I learned that the law can be a weapon, but it can also be a shield if you have the right evidence. I learned that silence isn't peace, it's compliance. And I learned that family isn't a bloodline, it's the people who show up when the world hands you handcuffs. I still see a therapist. We talk about boundaries, about guilt, about rebuilding trust in my own judgment. The ache of what I lost, the idea of a loving family, is still there. It probably always will be. But it's no longer an open wound, it's a scar, a reminder. Last month, I got a notification on my phone, an update to the state's legal code regarding false police reports, highlighting the increased penalties for cases involving demonstrable malicious intent and financial coercion. A footnote referenced a Vance case as judicial precedent. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt weary. My name was now a footnote in a law meant to protect others from what I went through. The dashcam that started it all sits in a drawer in my desk, a cheap piece of plastic and circuitry. I keep it as a reminder, not of their betrayal, but of my own resilience. It was a tool I bought for safety, and it ended up saving me in a way I never imagined. The system worked eventually, but it shouldn't take a perfect recording, a viral podcast, and a brother flipping to get justice. The real crime began long before the police were called. It began in the quiet moments when I learned my voice didn't matter. That's the part the law can never fully remedy. So I talk about it, not for sympathy, but as a warning. If you're in a house where your name is on the ledger but not on the deed, where your successes are borrowed and your failures are magnified, start recording. Not just with a device, but in your mind. Keep your own records, build your own exit fund in an account they can't touch. Your freedom is your most valuable asset, and sometimes you have to protect it from the people who claim to love you most. My name is Alara Vance. I was arrested for stealing my own life, and I got it back. What happened in my family wasn't unique, it was just recorded. Across the country, in quiet suburbs and crowded cities, similar battles are fought without a dashcam to document them. A parent uses a joint bank account to freeze assets. A family member threatens to call immigration. A relative leverages a secret to enforce compliance. The tools change, but the mechanism is the same: the weaponization of trust, the exploitation of love, and the use of legal systems as instruments of control, not justice. My story is a case study in how to fight back, evidence, documentation, the cold, hard light of truth, but it's also a warning about the cost. The cost isn't just measured in legal fees or lost time, it's measured in the permanent rewriting of your own history. The memories of your childhood become crime scenes. The sound of your mother's voice becomes evidence. You trade the family you were born into for the person you have to become to survive them. It's a terrible bargain, but sometimes it's the only one on the table. I don't have a neat, happy ending where we all reconcile. My parents are on probation. I have a car with a clean title in my name. We don't speak. That's the resolution. It's not satisfying in a cinematic way, but it's real. It's peace. A quiet, guarded peace built on boundaries made of steel. If you're watching this and you see a fragment of your own life in mine, if you're the quiet one, the scapegoat, the bank account, the emotional caretaker, I want you to know this: your reality is not a negotiation. Your truth is not up for a vote. The moment someone uses a system designed to protect the vulnerable to instead make you vulnerable, the relationship is no longer familial. It's forensic. Start building your case even if you never intend to file it. Save your money in an account with only your name. Keep records of conversations, know your legal rights. And yes, consider a dashcam or any tool that creates an objective record. In a world of he said, she said, the unbiased witness is king. My dashcam was a fluke, a lucky break, but justice shouldn't depend on luck. It should be accessible, clear, and swift for anyone being manipulated by those they should trust the most. This isn't a story about winning, it's a story about stopping the game. I stopped playing by their rules. I introduced a new piece to the board, the truth, recorded, and it changed everything. So what's the lingering question? It's not whether they loved me. I think in their own broken way they believed they did. The question is, what does love require? Does it require ownership? Does it require silence? Or does it require the freedom for the other person to exist fully and separately even if you don't like the life they choose? I choose the latter, and I'm building a new family slowly, piece by piece, with friends who became siblings, with mentors who became guides, with a partner who sees me. You can too. Your family isn't a room you're trapped in. It's a house you get to build. You decide the foundation, you choose who gets a key. If this story connected with you, if it sparked a memory or a realization, tell me in the comments. What's one boundary you've had to draw that changed everything? Your story might be the lifeline someone else needs to hear. And if you want more deep dives into stories of survival, resilience, and the systems we navigate, both broken and healing, make sure you're subscribed. Hit that notification bell, because the truth has a patient way of coming out, and I'll be here sharing it with you. My name is Alara Vance. This is my testimony. Thank you for listening.